Greetings. We're back at Studio 720, high atop Chapel Hill, North Carolina, the home studio here. I'm your excellent host, Professor Seegers. So once again, welcome to MBA 720. Tonight is an exciting topic. Really excited about what we're going to see and explore tonight. It is pervasive computing. Pervasive computing is really interesting from the standpoint that it might be the technology that you're most familiar with in terms of using. So if you've got a Fitbit, if you've got a smartwatch, smartphone, if you have an Echo at home or a Dot, any of the technologies such as that, you probably are in the field of pervasive computing. It is a growing field. Now, one of the things I want you to consider here, again, it's not just the Internet of Things, okay? That's part of it. It's not that that's a bad thing. But when you think about the whole concept of Internet of Things, it's sort of interconnected devices, and we'll see this in just a moment. It's a little bit more. It's actually independent processing, independent storage, independent communication from unbundled devices. Typically, all that's bundled up, in a laptop or in a desktop or in a sort of stationary computing device. And we've had that for years and years and years. Since 1982, we've seen the PC evolve in that form. This is a bit different. That type of technology is now becoming smaller, more intuitive, and it is placing itself in the world around us. And it's exciting. It's actually something that every day you see a new technology come out, be it a smart plug or some device in a smart car, or some technology in an automobile. And so it's really kind of interesting to watch this technology evolve. Now, it is also creating a lot of new business models, creating a whole lot of new things. Again, not to forget what we did earlier, the technology forecasting model. It's really important to go back to that reference science of pervasive computing. And I would say that really gets into the engineering and certainly heavy into the informational sciences. To look for those trends, things that sort of give us an idea about how this technology is evolving, what are some of the early form factors of it, and what might be some of the new business models. So what I thought would be fun tonight, rather than sort of talk at you and fill the air with conversation, I'm going to do a little bit of that, but what I want to do is also fill the air and fill your senses with video. So let's go in and take a look at some of these new technologies, some of the new ideas that are coming out. I think you'll be amazed when you really start to think about how this technology is evolving and how it's changing things. I think you'll be very excited about it. And again, just to remind you, keep on your MBA business hat. Be thinking about new businesses. What does this mean for customer expectations? What does it mean for products and services? How is competition using this type of technology to engage not only customers, but to engage members of their supply chain? It's really amazing. How do you coordinate sales teams? How do you coordinate meetings? A lot of this is really sort of the purview, if you will, of pervasive computing. So let's jump into our definition. Embedded, unobtrusive, everyday objects that are smaller, powerful, fast, and interconnected. Now, I think you're going to be amazed by some of the video that I'm about to show you here in terms of where this might go. And certainly, I think for you and for me, that's always the question. We can all go and take a look at the new technology, and we can see how it's being used. But the thing that you got to ponder is, where's it going to go? Where is this leading? What types of things might we see in the future from this type of technology? Well, one of the things that we talked about earlier is certainly interconnectivity, and that gets you back to the good old Internet of Things. We're seeing a lot of these technologies interoperate with each other. So one of the trends out of the Internet of Things is interoperability. I think that's a big trend out of IoT. So it's one thing to know about IoT. The thing you got to ask yourself is, what are the major trends? Interoperability, I would say transparency too. Transparency of data is another trend that you're seeing in these Internet of Things types of architectures. So you've got transparency, interoperability. I would also say simplicity is another trend that you're starting to see. You rather than have to figure out how to adjust a thermostat or how to cut the lights on looking for a switch, you basically do it with voice commands. And so that is sort of an idea of simplicity. And there are other trends that you can really start to think about for the Internet of Things. But certainly I think IoT really speaks to interconnectivity and transparency. So those are two things that you see in the Internet of Things. Some major trends, and these are three that I picked up in the research for the 7 Technologies article: ubiquity, natural interaction, and proactivity. I want to start with proactivity. I think that's a really key one. Certainly, the design of engineering for a long time has really been to avoid proactivity. It was almost seen as something that was almost undesired and something that was very difficult to engineer into a device. And so what we're seeing these days is actually a turn or a change in that engineering focus to make things more aware of where they are, how you're using them, to detect activity, and even to get into behavior modeling, as you can see here, and need prediction, but to make technology proactive. Where this is really becoming big is certainly in big data. The idea that technology should be able to go in into a sea of data and pull out from that data things that we might be looking for. It can tell that we're diagnosing something, that maybe we're looking into a supply chain for something, and it can kind of go through that data and see what we're looking for, know why we're looking for it, know what we've used it for in the past, and give us information. So proactivity is one of those huge trends in pervasive computing that I think is going to become even bigger in the future. It's one that I'm very excited about. We're seeing some good business cases come out of it. So again, going back to our technology forecasting model, there's a lot of activity in the reference sciences and in the proactivity trend, certainly in the information sciences. Artificial intelligence is guiding that in the engineering sciences. And some of the early forms of that technology are looking really strong, looking reliable in terms of their ability to predict things in the way that we hope they predict things, and also cost effective. So those are two things that you kind of think about, you know, when you're starting to look at early manifestations. Ubiquity. One of the things that's really interesting about ubiquity is that these devices blend in with everyday things. So whether it be a wearable device, implantable device, whatever it may be, that they're ubiquitous. They don't stand out. And I think that's something that you're going to see more of, where you have a data display in the mirror of your bathroom that really gives you information about the weather, your calendar for the day, whether someone's trying to contact you via messaging, and that would just be part of your everyday routine. And it's becoming more and more like that when we start to think about how things are being designed. I'm going to show you some examples of this later on. Natural interaction, a huge, the idea that we interact with these things using voice, touch. Artificial intelligence is guiding this, information sciences, engineering sciences. Some of the early technologies, again, I don't think we're seeing final forms of this technology yet, but some of the early forms look really strong. They look useful. You know, it's not technology for technology's sake, that these natural interaction technologies are having some impact, and they are useful. So now let's dive in and take a look at the future in terms of what pervasive computing might look like.
When everything becomes linked with everything else, matter becomes mind, and the possibilities become endless. Imagine 50 billion IoT connected devices by 2020. Now, imagine the economic impact of these connected machines. $4 to $11 trillion per year by 2025. Wearable devices, environmental sensors, agricultural machinery, components in a vehicle, or devices in homes can all be connected to deliver insights and drive transformation. So imagine if you had smart devices in your home, your car, your workplace, or even on yourself. The world becomes alive. That's Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is making everyday objects into data factories. When Internet of Things, along with big data, meets artificial intelligence, this interface will become enlivened with intelligence, and a new world will take birth, which will increasingly talk back to us. Imagine.
So imagine what that might be like. One of the things that's really cool about that particular presentation, and one of the reasons that I chose it was, again, you're starting to see the convergence of different technologies. He talks about artificial intelligence converging with Internet of Things, which may then interface with robotics. And so if you're thinking about how these technologies converge, that really gets into the realm of what I call in the article super technologies. And I think that's really, to me, the big difference. It's not such that the technologies themselves are amazing. They are, but it's how they're converging. That's really new. And they're converging fairly readily. And I think that's exciting. I think it creates a lot of business opportunity out there, but it also creates a lot of disruption if you're a business out there. So you're seeing a lot of different things come together. Now, I'm going to choose just a few of the technologies in pervasive computing that I think are really kind of revolutionizing things and creating a lot of different business models out there. Of course, the first one's wearable technology, which I'm going to broaden the definition of wearable technology a little bit. Not only wearable, but implantable technology that you wear inside yourself. And that is a wide open field these days. And while you may think that I would never, ever have a piece of technology implanted in myself, don't be too sure, because these technologies can be life-saving. Imagine having a chip implanted in you with information about you, and heaven forbid you're in some accident, something where knowing your vital signs before the ambulance arrives, knowing your blood type before the ambulance arrives, having all that information available to the physicians who treat you may be the key to your survival. These are the types of things that are now being developed, and there are a lot of performance athletes that actually have implantable technology to monitor their vitals as they go through triathlons or these contests, these extreme contests. So wearable technology is really starting to take hold out there. So not just only the watch you wear or the phone that you might carry around or one day wear. It's really starting to move towards technology that is implanted in us. One of the exciting technologies out there, and the reason I like this one is because of its multiple uses, is Microsoft's HoloLens. Now, HoloLens is cool on its own, just in terms of bringing data and bringing information close to your eye in real time. And it's funny, I've got a pair of these that I usually demonstrate in class. They're the coolest things. But what's really interesting is how they're being used for data visualization and for design. You'll see a lot of this technology in companies like Pixar. I saw it at Mayo Clinic in terms of physicians that were using this type of technology to view radiology images. In fact, one physician had vitals and radiology that were in the lens as he was performing surgery. My daughter, she's a medical student at Boston University. They use these glasses to train medical students and to develop residents. And so it was kind of interesting to visit her and see her using these glasses in surgery. So let's take a look at this technology. Again, you got to think broadly. You got to think about the underlying sciences. You got to think about first forms. This HoloLens, I'm going to guess, is not a final form. And it's not even a first form. If you go back to Google Glasses, that was probably the first form of this technology. And you have to ask yourself, what will be the final form and what will be its best use? You really have to think about those things when you get into the world of technology forecasting and starting to think about new business models. So take a look at the demonstration and be amazed at what wearable technology might be and what it might be used for.
Microsoft HoloLens brings holograms into your real world. Using transparent lenses, spatial sound, and an understanding of your environment, holograms look and sound like they're actually part of the world around you. That is mixed reality. With Microsoft HoloLens, holograms are viewed through the holographic frame centered in the middle of your view. This preserves your peripheral vision, so you can move freely and connect and collaborate with the people around you. Holograms in mixed reality don't block out what you can see and hear. This enables you to engage with digital content and tools alongside the objects in your real world. Holograms can be world-locked in a physical location, so you can walk around them, or they can travel with you. You can even hear them in 3D with spatial sound. Microsoft HoloLens is the world's first fully untethered, self-contained holographic computer. With the mixed reality experience of HoloLens, you can stay in the real world and interact with real people as you simultaneously explore 3D in 3D.
Wow, get out of here. Isn't that amazing? It's really interesting to see the use there. Now notice the business case isn't just walking around and having these cool glasses on. Used in design, used in data visualization. And I keep hitting that point because that is one of the, I think, really strong emerging technologies that's coming out of combinations of the 7 technologies is that data visualization piece. You're going to see it a couple of times on down the road here in some of the presentations that we do later on. Here's a prototype of a wearable device. Now, the idea here is that it's sort of an iPhone, Samsung, even Google technology that you would wear on your wrist rather than keep in your pocket. And you can see here what's cool about it. Notice that it is a transparent layer. You can see behind the 20 degrees there that you can see her some pattern of her skin there, and it really is a wearable device. Now you can clamp these or wear them on your wrists, on your forearm, or on the thigh area, or on the back of your calves. These are prototypes now. These are tests, but what you're starting to see is very creative use of screen technology, high resolution screen technology that is more wearable. And gives you information not only to you, but information about you. So one of the interesting things about this prototype is that it is not only wearable, but it interacts with a chip implanted in you to give you firsthand information about your vitals. In one of the projects that I worked on last year with Apple in the Apple Watch technology, we were testing and looking at technology that would interact between the watch itself and implantable devices to really track heart rhythms and perhaps to even do EKG. It's very tough to do these types of medical tests just with a wearable device on the wrist. The device on the wrist needs to interact with devices that are implanted inside someone to really get a full picture of what is going on. So we're going to see a lot of interactivity between wearable and implantable devices in the future. So moving on to the next cool technology. Now, I would say that OLED, organic light emitting display or diode, organic light emitting diode, is not a final form. I would call this almost a second form of technology that really revolutionizes display. And the idea here is, and you can see it in this photograph, is to take display and put it on transparent surfaces, so in glass display. Now, I just want to show you just a quick sort of comparison about an LCD, which is sort of the old-fashioned way, if you will, of creating display, and the OLED technology. Now, the OLED technology is really being pioneered by Samsung. So if you want to take a look at some of the best OLED displays and sort of how they're doing it, what you're going to see there is a lot of good technology from Samsung. And the idea there is that you're really trying to take all of the things that are in an LCD and really bring them together in a very different way to get more vivid display, a display that is bendable, and something that almost indescribable. It really gives you a vivid, good display. Now, the difference between the two here is, notice that you're not using the idea of glass separately along with a liquid crystal and then a glass filter. So if you take a look at the bottom one, that's really almost 2 steps away, or 2 steps up, if you want to think about it that way, from the old even tube-based types of displays. When you get into OLED, you're really starting to get into a different type of display that really gives you, again, bendable display, much more vivid picture, and certainly energy efficiency. So let's take a look how OLED technology, now again, think of OLED as a class of technology, but this type of display, the idea of transparent, bendable display with very vivid picture, very high resolution picture on it, might revolutionize a lot of different things, from wearables to the things that you interact with every day. Again, pervasive computing is what we're looking at here. Take a look at the future.
The birth of display was the beginning of a new world. In the world that was revealed by the display, we saw a brighter future. We have turned imagination into reality. We have finally opened up a new realm of innovation for OLED after overcoming numerous challenges through our passion. We will make this new world with values that rise above the technology we have known so far. Display, which broke away from the limits of form, more freely overcame the hindrances of expression to expand the value of beauty into a realm of creation close to an art. while substituting for familiar functions and emotions. We are continuing to imagine through infinity. A window of communication which allows mutual understanding beyond the visible world. It always leads us to selecting the best by swiftly reacting, even at unexpected moments. The unlimited evolution of technology turns all imagination to a display into reality. Our old dreams of getting desired information have just all been realized by wearable devices. More satisfactory routines are made to be enjoyed by always providing optimum conditions. Furthermore, our desired values are provided anywhere and anytime through thinner and lighter forms. Interface without gap between humans and technology. As OLED technology enters into our environment and forms, our work and life will be made anew even further. And at the end of all the changes, our dreams will be realized. Although the display is evolving ceaselessly, our never-changing values will continue to be projected toward human beings. A sheet of display will wrap around even our hearts and contain values of communication and healing to get us closer to fulfilling our dreams. An amazing and precious experience where desires are unfolded and all emotions in that space are conveyed through the 5 senses. While we nourish the happiness of the next generation in this way, we will advance to this new world. The future, dreamed of by everyone. The technology that's making that future a reality. OLED will be opening up beyond everyone's imagination.
Wow. Pretty amazing. And again, what I hope you see there is the difference between the old liquid crystal display and OLED, certainly being that bendable technology, transparent technology, very, very vivid display, and certainly very energy efficient. And you can see that even what we're doing now, as good as some of the technology is, and as interesting as Zoom is, even Zoom itself is not a final form technology, not by any stretch of the imagination. So one of the things that you really start to think about is, what other devices will we start to use, as we do more distributed type of learning, more distributed types of meetings. What will that look like? And I think you get an idea of what that might look like, certainly in that video. It's just really amazing. And interestingly enough, when you visit MIT Media Lab and you visit even some of the advanced medical clinics, Cleveland Clinic and Mayo Clinic, you see this technology. So it's not science fiction. It's not something that we can think of as being even 10 years off. I mean, this is around the corner, and it's really going to revolutionize a lot of processes. So if you're interested in healthcare, if you're interested in education, or even how organizations work, that technology is going to revolutionize a lot of human interaction, a lot of design interaction. And again, it's amazing to me. Again, we're going to talk about this later on in the class, but when you visit some of these organizations like Pixar, it's really just, I want to call it routine. That was the word that I kind of came out there, but it is kind of like that. It's just, it's not something that they see as being out of the ordinary. And it's something that helps them accomplish pretty incredible things. Well, one of the more interesting, I think, technologies that is coming around the bend here is advanced holographic display. Seeing some of this is pretty amazing. When I was doing the research, I had a couple of companies that said, hey, you need to come visit us. You need to come see what we're doing. And sort of, test out what we have. One of those companies is the Looking Glass Factory. So visited Looking Glass Factory, took a look at some of their technology, went in skeptical, went in thinking, what is this just going to be sort of hokey type of technology? Came out really, really impressed. They really have a lot of good technology. It is going to revolutionize the way we design things. It's going to revolutionize the way physicians diagnose, and it may even redesign the way we think about information and the way we visualize everything in our world, from how we drive to the information we get in the Wall Street Journal or everywhere else. So let's take a look at some of the technology that's going on at Looking Glass Factory.
This 8K holographic display can show 3D content from 45 unique perspectives, with no headsets or special glasses required.
I've had this dream of a holographic display since I was a little kid. I first saw the shark gobble up Marty McFly in Back to the Future 2.
We visited the Looking Glass Factory in Brooklyn, New York to learn all about their 8K immersive display and what the future looks like for this emerging new category of holographic video.
If you think about any screen that's ever been made, all of those displays run off of pixels that have two properties of intensity and color. But the real world, like this DeLorean I happen to have here, is real to us because the light of this room is bouncing off of the glass and plastic and rubber with a third property of the directionality.
Moving side to side, you can see how the light reflecting off the objects in the display changes based on the viewer's perspective. Lenses and magnifying glasses viewed through the 8K immersive display also illustrate how Looking Glass's light field technology mimics the behavior of light as it interacts with real-world objects before arriving at your eyes.
So we make all the optics and electronics for the Looking Glass product line that essentially sends out, in some cases, like in the case of the Looking Glass 8K, 100 million points and controls the directionality of those 100 million points to generate a synthetic light field, which in non-nerd language just means a hologram.
The Looking Glass displays have about a 40 to 50 degree viewing angle. Once you step outside the viewing cone, the image flips and distorts a bit.
We like to think of the Looking Glass product line as kind of the Switzerland of the AR, VR hologram universe, where we can take any type of 3D input, and we built enough software infrastructure so that the Looking Glass can run all these types of three-dimensional information. That also is represented in how we can work with any type of peripheral. Really any way that folks have developed to interact with three-dimensional information, from the 2D computer field all the way up to what's been done in VR and AR landscape, the Looking Glass supports that.
The display updates at a rate of 60 frames per second, pretty standard for most computer displays and TVs.
Even though there isn't a lot of 8K content out there for flat screens, there's a lot of three-dimensional content. Our software infrastructure has a camera essentially that takes dozens of different views of that three-dimensional scene, bundles them up into a video signal that then is deconstructed by the optics and electronics of the looking glass itself, so that we can pull all of those perspectives from a virtual environment into the real world environment through the looking glass. This illustrates kind of how the light field processing is done in the background in a lot of our software. So the looking glass can really do anything that is in a totally virtual environment, but also capture and then replay the real world with a really high level of fidelity.
The Looking Glass Factory's 8K immersive display might be their latest and largest holographic display, but it isn't the only option. The Looking Glass has an 8.9-inch version and a 15.6-inch version, which range in cost from about $600 to $6,000 depending on the type of package you get. These smaller desktop displays are aimed at developers, while the 8K immersive display is aimed at specific industries like medical imaging, holographic mapping, and scientific visualization. Folks interested in the 8K version will have to reach out to Looking Glass directly through their website for pricing information.
I believe, and all of us here in our team believe, that the step that comes after 2D computers and 2D screens is a holographic step primarily. One of my special dreams, and my co-founder Alex's dreams when we started the company, was the idea that you could have a looking glass here in Brooklyn, and we could have one maybe in San Francisco or Shanghai. And between those two looking glasses, it would be like you poked a hole through the earth, and you could share a few feet of space with somebody as if they were sitting right across from you, but in this case through a holographic looking glass.
What would you do with a holographic display? Let us know your thoughts, dreams, and opinions down below. Thanks to my colleague in New York, Marta Franco, for visiting and filming the Looking Glass Factory for us. Thanks to YouTube commenter Gilotopia for suggesting the Looking Glass 8K display for a WTF video. And thanks to you all for watching. See you next time with the fam.
Wow, so awesome. What would you do with a looking glass display? I think what I would do is I would take it to a party and I would be the coolest person there. And I would also have on Sean's hat. That is the coolest baseball cap I think I've ever seen. Isn't it really interesting when you look at the holographic display and start to think about the possibilities? In fact, if you take a look at all that you saw here in pervasive computing, you're seeing, I think, some that are more manifest, are more evolved than others, more mature than others. And of course, with the looking glass display, you're seeing something that may be in early form, but certainly with a lot of promise. I think that that technology is useful for a lot of things. In fact, the way I discovered looking glass was by researching in a lab at MIT, the Broad Institute lab, where they were using the looking glass technology to model the human genome. So they were actually using it to look at DNA sequences. In fact, what they were doing was trying to look at different cancer sequences. And so they were using the looking glass technology to really get a 3D picture of how that DNA sequence would work, or would look, or structure, so that they could then go in and start to think about different strategies for reconstructing that DNA sequence. So pervasive computing is really remarkable in terms of display, in terms of wearable, implantable devices, and of course, in terms of how 2D might turn into 3D types of displays and even holographic representations that we can't even imagine right now. All right, so that's technology number one, pervasive computing. When you dial in again, we will move on to a very interesting technology, mesh computing, and talk about everything from 5G to edge computing to drone technology. Okay? I will see you next time.